NuoDB.
So what I want to do is I want to take you through the evolution of a database, from installing NuoDB on a single machine for testing, to scaling it out across multiple hosts for transactional throughput and high availability reasons, to actually getting running in multiple regions in a geo-distributed database. And I'm going to do this using a new tool we've created, what we call the Automation Console, which is a streamlined web interface we've introduced in NuoDB 2.0 for managing your databases and seeing something about the available resources across your domain. So to get started, we're going to launch a database instance. And when we start a database, we're asked to give it a name. We'll call it Blackbirds. We're asked for an initial DBA username and password, and we're asked to pick a template. And a template is essentially a service level agreement. It's what is the problem you're trying to solve. So we'll start by saying we just want to run on a single host to get started. We'll hit submit. And there we can see the database has started. We can click through. And what we see is what the system has started for us is a database running on a single host made up of two processes. Now to start driving some load to this database, we'll use a demo that we include with the 2.0 product, something called the storefront. The storefront is basically a simulation of an online shopping site. And we've loaded one here. We can go to the control panel and we can basically choose to create a number of different simulated users, users who will interact with the database differently. So you can get a flavor of how the database reacts to kind of read mostly, write mostly, different kinds of queries. And so we'll just start with some light load here to start driving a little bit of simulated load to the database. And we can go back to the automation console and we can see here that there was a spike in activity when we first loaded the data. Followed by activity that's starting to ramp up from those simulated users against the database. So now let's say you're comfortable with what NuoDB looks like on a single instance, and you want to start trying to scale it out to see what it would do in a real deployment. So what this new automation console lets you do is take advantage of some new features in the system around templates. And I can actually go in and say, the database that I was running that I started as a single host database, I now want running against the multi-host template, against something that requires it to run on multiple hosts, both for data durability and also for transactional scale out. And so what I'm now going to do is I'm going to go back to the storefront and I'm going to change the load I'm driving against it, because where before I was running on a single host, now I've scaled across 8 hosts. What this template did for me is two things. First of all, it automated the process of scaling out the transactional tier so that I'm actually handling transactional load across all of these 8 hosts. It also set up a second complete independent point of durability for my database. So without doing anything, I now have 2 full copies of my database that are always transactionally consistent and are being maintained and managed correctly by the system. And so just by saying I want to change from one template to another, I've gone from a testing database on a single host to a true robust scale-out database across a cluster. All right, so I think that's pretty cool, but let's say you're ready for the next step now. Let's say you're ready to take this database you've been running and distribute it across multiple data centers. Same thing, we're going to go in, we're going to choose the geo-distributed template, and what that's now going to do is that's going to take that database and run with the same recipe across the 3 different regions we have available to us. And now I'm back in the storefront, and what I'm doing here is I'm replicating essentially the same load. I'm driving that same load I was driving to one region, now I'm driving it to multiple regions. And the storefront is a great example for this because this is kind of what you'd see in the real world, right? You'd see customers who need to access a single database. There's a common inventory, there's a common set of sales every day. But each customer has their own customer data, each customer has their own set of shopping carts, and so this is something that scales naturally in a geo-distributed environment. And as you can see, what's going to happen here is by bringing on 2 additional regions and by having these storefronts start to drive load to those regions, we see the numbers, the total transactional throughput go up. And this is a breakdown here by host. What you can see is that as we've brought new hosts online, that load has really been distributed evenly across those available hosts for doing transactional processing. So this is just a really, really quick glimpse into what we've done in 2.0. We'll be writing a ton about this on our blog, but I think it's pretty exciting. I think it's pretty cool what we're doing in terms of automation, in terms of ease of use, in terms of enabling true geo-distribution.